What is going on? Welcome back. My name is Colin Mason. Today I wanted to walk you through a step-by-step action guide on how to actually deploy liquidity into a liquidity pool and start earning your first dollars in DeFi. Now, this space, I have to admit, can be very technical. The terminology we use can be really complex, really complicated, and like any other language, it's hard to really grasp what's going on until you hear it over and over again, or until you see it in action, until you immerse yourself into the culture of DeFi. It can be rather challenging. So my mission today, by the end of this video, is because I've on-ramped some capital, I want to deploy capital into a liquidity pool, show you step by step how I do it using our in-house app DeFi Buddy here, and then also talk through the language and the terminology that we use so that you can see, these words that you hear probably Lucas and other people talk about on this side, you can hear it and you can sort of understand it, but when you see it in action, that's when hopefully it starts to click. So what I wanted to do is actually provide some liquidity. If I were to take a big step back, I want to describe very quickly what that means, because you'll probably hear it a bunch when you're listening and talking through DeFi here, is that liquidity providing is the best, from my opinion, it is the best cash flow vehicle that we have in DeFi. What that means is it is the vehicle and the DeFi activity that produces the most rewards when it comes to cash flow. Now, there are some risks like impermanent loss and other things that I'm not necessarily going to be talking about on this video, but it is the best cash flow vehicle. Okay, so with that being said, if my mission, my goal, which is what I have everybody in the UIG and everybody in Fast Track, we have to define what our missions are. But if your mission is, hey, cash flow, I want to generate rewards, I want to generate cash flow, well, liquidity pools are the best vehicle for that. So what is a liquidity pool? Very quickly, a liquidity pool is a decentralized way for us to provide two assets, crypto tokens into a liquidity pool, and that helps facilitate the trading between these two assets. So that means if Bob comes and he connects his wallet to Uniswap and he has green but he wants the white, right? If he has green and wants white, he'll come in, he'll deposit his green and he will withdraw his white. The capital that he's using to facilitate that trade is mine. I'm the liquidity provider, and he pays a small fee into the decentralized exchange smart contracts, and then I get paid those fees. So summarize very quickly, I take my green and white tokens, I provide them as liquidity. Bob and Joe and Mary all come in and they start trading their crypto assets back and forth like this. And every single time they do a trade, they're paying a very small fee, and that fee comes to me as the liquidity provider. And so that's what I wanted to do today. I on-ramped some capital, and I have it sitting in my wallet, and I wanted to use DeFi Buddy, which is, again, our in-house application, and literally go step by step in terms of the research, in terms of the pool selection, and then actually deploying capital into it, and then also tracking it. So lots of things I want to cover today. It might be a little bit of a longer video, but hopefully it's valuable to you. Okay. Where do I start? So when I want to deploy capital into a new liquidity pool, right? I on-ramp some USDC, it's sitting in my wallet, I'm ready to deploy. Before I start deploying, I obviously need to figure out what asset do I want to provide as liquidity, or what assets do I want to provide as liquidity. Because a liquidity pool is two tokens, two assets paired with each other, I need to be comfortable holding both of those assets, one or the other. Sorry, my phone's ringing. So what that means is that let's use this top one right here, this wrapped USDT pool. Because I'm providing liquidity in both of those tokens, I need to be comfortable holding both of those tokens. So one mistake, I'll throw in a little bonus here. One mistake I see a lot of beginners do is they'll just look at the APY. And the APY is a function of the returns, the cash flow that you will receive from being in this liquidity pool. They will just filter by the highest APY and they'll get into that pool, and they're not taking into consideration what the two assets are that they're providing as liquidity. In my opinion, the assets themselves are the most important part and aspect of providing liquidity, because we are technically investing in those two assets. And so if I find some random tokens and I provide them as liquidity, if those tokens go down in value, my liquidity pool value is also going to drop. And with the function of a liquidity pool, I'm actually getting converted into the underperforming of those two assets. And that's what the concentrated liquidity pool. So I'm using a lot of technical terms, but to summarize here, you have to be comfortable with holding the two underlying assets. If you are not, my personal take and how I coach people is I just would not enter that liquidity pool. If you're not comfortable holding both of those tokens, or fully converted into one of them, then do not provide that as liquidity. Find assets you want to provide as liquidity and that you would want to hold anyway, and that's a liquidity pool that I would want to get into. Okay, that's number one. Number two is the actual chain and DEX. All right, so actually two different things. So let's break it down. Two is the chain. So there are various highways, or what I'd like to call highways or blockchains, that we can provide liquidity on. There's Arbitrum, there's Ethereum mainnet, there's the base chain, there's Solana, there's Sui, there's now TauFi, which I'm getting excited about. There are so many different blockchains that we that are being built on and that we could provide liquidity for inside of decentralized exchanges. So the first thing that I want to, or the second thing rather, that I need to do after I've selected the assets that I want to provide this liquidity, I need to figure out, well, what chains are those assets available on? If I'm wanting to provide liquidity with ETH, with wrapped ETH, well, there are a few different chains that I could provide liquidity on. Actually, there's many, but to keep it super simple, the three that I would be looking at would be Ethereum mainnet. However, very expensive gas fees. Actually, it's getting better, but it's still very expensive in comparison to other chains. So Ethereum mainnet, don't do that as a beginner. I'll just kind of say that straight up. Like, do not use Ethereum mainnet as a beginner. Only do that when you feel like you've mastered the liquidity providing game and you have a lot of capital to deploy. I'm talking maybe $4,000 to $5,000 per liquidity pool plus, 4 to 5 plus in for each pool. Reason for that, just really quick, is because the gas fees are so expensive, you're going to need enough capital in those liquidity pools to be generating rewards that outpace or make the gas fees irrelevant. For some people who deploy, $500 into an Ethereum mainnet pool, well, they're paying $5-10 worth of gas fees, so they're going to have to generate more than $10 in fees before they even break even. And with a $500, that's going to take a long time, and that's not considering any rebalancing that you need to do, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, as a beginner, I would not be deploying on Ethereum mainnet. Well, that leaves a few other ones, right? We have Arbitrum and Base. Those are probably the two that I would recommend just as a beginner, as a starter, because you get you get exposure to Ethereum tokens and assets, but because it's a layer 2, it's going to be a lot cheaper to use. You'll still need Ethereum, native Ethereum, in your wallets, on those chains to pay for gas fees, right? So if I want to provide liquidity on Arbitrum, the chain, I would still need ETH in my wallet to pay for gas fees on Arbitrum. Same with Base, right? I would need ETH to pay for gas fees. So let's kind of pause there for a sec. So we have the assets that we've selected. We have, which for me is ETH. I'm just going to do ETH. ETH is my pool that I'm going to get into today. So I want to ETH and I want to pair it with a stable coin. Reason being for that, real quick, is for me, when I have done research on Ethereum pools paired with a stablecoin compared to pairing with another coin, if my mission is cash flow, I'm going to generate rewards and cash flow, the most consistent and the highest paying usually in terms of rewards is an Ethereum paired with a stablecoin. Wrapped ETH USDT or Wrapped ETH USDC. Those are usually the most consistent and the most lucrative in terms of cash flow. Not the best when it comes to price appreciation, but that's something for another topic. but yes, so if I'm wanting to provide liquidity with ETH, then I want to select it with a stablecoin. The second thing is the chain. For me, I'm probably going to do Arbitrum today. Now, I did on-ramp some capital onto Base and to Arbitrum, but I think I'm going to select Arbitrum. So that's in my mind of, okay, I'm looking for an ETH pool paired with a stablecoin on Arbitrum. The next thing I want to do is figure out, well, what DEX, what decentralized exchange do I want to select? For me, I'm looking at Uniswap. Uniswap, it is the biggest decentralized exchange out there. It's been around since 2018, which is like the genesis of DeFi. So it's sort of founded this whole thing. And Uniswap has, as of right now, $6.743 billion of TVL. That is a ton of capital in this platform. And you can kind of see here on DeFi Llama the history of Uniswap. Even got up to over 10 billion in 2020 and 2021. So very big decentralized exchange. And that is the one that I want to be looking for when I'm providing liquidity. So here I am, a DeFi buddy. I'm going to click liquidity pools, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to search for those various things. So the first thing that I was looking for was the chain, right? I wanted to select Arbitrum. And when I select Arbitrum, you can see it filters all the chain, so it's all the Arbitrum pools. The next thing I want to do is I want to hunt for Uniswap. So I have Uniswap v3, and now I can see all of the different liquidity pools that are on Arbitrum chain, on Uniswap V3s, which is V3 is the concentrated liquidity here. So Arbitrum chain protocol Uniswap V3. The next thing I want to do is actually look for ETH pools. So you can actually see right here, right on the top, the first one, wrapped ETH USDC, and this is the 0.05% fee tier. Just a little bit of a lesson for you. That fee tier, that little in brackets with a percentage, that is the fee that users are paying to swap their assets. And so users who come to Uniswap and they have ETH and they swap it for USDC, or they have USDC and they swap it for ETH, if they use this liquidity pool, which the DEX will kind of select that pool for the user, if they're using this 0.05% fee tier liquidity pool, the users will be paying a 0.05% fee. That fee comes to me as a liquidity provider. And so this is the one that I want to select here. So I'm going to press simulate, and that will bring up this screen here, which allows us to simulate this position a little bit to get us a little bit more details on this position. So the next thing I want to do before I do anything, I want to select the range. Now the range is how is where do I want to provide that liquidity in between a price range. And so I'll give you an example here. If I provide liquidity in a full range liquidity pool, that means that I am providing liquidity for ETH and USDC here from 0 all the way to infinity. For me, that works. There's a lot less management with full range pools, but it's really inefficient. And what I mean by inefficient is when I'm providing liquidity, users are using my capital when my capital is provided at that fee tick, at the tick space right there, right? So say this in a different way. If the current price is $4,500, well, if my capital is being provided at that tick space, right there at that fee tick, at $4,500, my capital is being used, and when it's being used, I'm earning those fees. If I'm providing liquidity between $2,000 and $3,000, and the current price is $4,500, that means I'm out of range. I'm not providing liquidity at $4,500, so my capital is not earning rewards. It is not being used as liquidity for people to swap back and forth. And so when I'm selecting a range, I want to select, well, at what minimum, at what maximum price do I want to provide liquidity so that if my capital is being used, I earn those fees. Give you one more quick example. If I'm providing liquidity from 4,000 to 6,000 and the current price is 2,000, my capital is not being used. I'm out of range, no longer earning those fees. So I want to make sure that when I select a range, that I'm selecting a range where my capital is going to be used most of the time, so that, as the people are swapping back and forth, my capital is being used and I earn those fees. The wider, again, this is another huge lesson, but the wider we make it, the less fees we earn, because the more spread out our capital is, but the more in range we're going to be if prices are volatile. The tighter I am, the more I'm going to earn in fees, but the more volatile that situation will be. Because again, if the price moves outside of my range, I stop earning fees and I'm fully converted into the underperforming of those two assets. So for me, I like to go a little bit wider than most people. The reason why I like to go wider is because it keeps me in range. Even though I might not be earning the most amount of fees, it keeps me in range the longest. So with that in mind, what I want to do now is actually go to TradingView and look at what price could I be providing as liquidity. Let's hop over there right now. Okay, so I'm here and I already did a little bit of work on this, but what I've done is I've calculated, or I've put in what the previous all-time high is, and that's here in the dotted green. The other thing that I want to think about is I want to capture the majority of the trading fees, and so what I'm looking for when I'm selecting a range is, well, where is support and where is resistance? I'm going to keep it super simple. When I look back and I zoom out way on, this is on a daily chart for ETH. I know this is kind of a messy chart here, but when I zoom out way back, what I've seen is 4,000 right here. 4,000 for ETH has been a really significant level of resistance in the past. So I came up here in 2021 and tested it, and we ended up rejecting it. Now we did break through, but that right here was a significant level of resistance. Right here in March of 2024, another massive level of resistance. We see a huge run up, we see it come right to 4,000 and then get rejected. Same thing here in June 2024. We run up, we hit 4,000, we get rejected. We came all the way down here to about $2,300 in September 2024. Then we had a massive run up right back here. In fact, I could probably draw another one right here so we can see it. Right here, 4,000 got rejected. Another huge run up right here. That was in July of this year, July 2025. Big run up to 4,000, rejected. Now we finally broke through. And so now what I want to do is zoom in. So I wanted to show that we had significant resistance at 4,000, which again is a psychological level as well. So once we broke through 4,000, once we got to about here and we closed above 4,000, I said, okay, all of these different levels of resistance now become support. So for me, 4,000 is now a significant level of support. I know hopefully you're sticking with me. For some people who maybe aren't familiar with these terms, maybe that's a little tricky, but I'm looking at what zone or what level do I think it will bounce off of? And so we've seen here, once we broke 4,000, we moved up here. We did come down to test a little bit closer to 4,000 right here. We saw a nice bounce. Same thing. We came down here. It was 4,100, but we bounced. We came down here. Now we broke 4,000 for a day, but ultimately we bounced. And so 4,000 for me is now a very significant level of support. And so that's where I'm going to put my lower level, my minimum range down here at about 4,000. I'm doing a little bit lower than 4,000, but about 4,000. The next thing I want to do is find, well, what's that next level of resistance? And the way I do that is I look at, well, where are the previous all-time highs? Where have we been here? Back here in November 2021, 4,900 was that all-time high. And so when we had this massive run-up, I had that previous all-time high already written in because I wanted to see as we run up here, actually, let me just delete this. As we run up, are we going to approach that previous all-time high? We did. We broke 4,000. We moved all the way up to about 4,700 and got rejected. So for me, I marked that in. Okay, hey, that's a pretty significant level of resistance here. Curious to see if we test it again. We broke down. Again, like I said, we bounced off 4. We came back up. We did break this previous 4,700. We came and we tested previous all-time highs and ultimately got rejected from there. So when I'm setting ranges, I'm really looking at where's the level of support, where's the level of resistance, and I want to provide liquidity in between. So what I'm looking for as a liquidity provider is bouncing, ping pongs. I want to see liquidity, the price action bounce between significant levels of support and resistance. Now, somebody could say, well, Colin, why aren't you providing liquidity at the wicks? Why aren't you providing liquidity here? And the answer is, you certainly can. You absolutely can. I'm just trying to make my capital as efficient as it can be without providing liquidity fully at those wicks, because I don't know, it's kind of a user thing. For me, I think the level of 4,000 is a little bit stronger. Right here, you can see right here we tested 4,000, we broke down. So anyways, I think 4,000 is going to be that lower figure that I can choose. And instead of going above the previous all-time high, I'm coming down a little bit more just because I see a little bit more resistance here at that 4,700 level. So I want my capital to be efficiently used between these levels, which I believe would be about 20% wide if I calculate it. Yep, about 20% wide range here. So with that being said, I want to take that data, everything I just did, and I want to bring it over to DeFi Buddy. So I'm going to actually hop over here. And then what I want to do is I want to put in the minimum price and the maximum price here. And that will help me, forward pace what my projected fees might be and the returns that I could get based on the previous data. So let's go here. Bottom range, 3,950. So minimum range, 3,950. That will adjust it to the price tick here. Then the next one is going to be 4,775. 4,775. So now I'm providing liquidity between 3,950 and 4,775. Now I have about $2,500 I'm going to be deploying into this pool. So why I put that in here is it shows me roughly how much ETH and how much USDC I would need to enter this pool. Understand that the ratio of the assets that you have here is dependent on where the current price is in relation to the range. And you can see the range right here. If I scroll back up, you can see the range with the dotted lines, and you see the thick line here. The thick line, that's my current price. The bottom and top range are dotted, right? So you can see that the solid current price is closer to the top end of my range. And so I'm not going to be entering with 50-50. I'm going to be entering in with 35% ETH, 65% USDC. And so when I am actually deploying capital into this thing, I want to make sure that I have the proper ratio of tokens, and I'll be swapping here in a minute. So let's keep going here. Estimated fee. So based on this, what I could do is run a back test over the last 30 days, and it shows, hey, based on this range and based on the trading volume down here and based on the liquidity distribution, you should be getting about 100% APR, which that's pretty dang good with an ETH USDC pool. If I wanted to backtest this, let's say to like 60 days, let's go back to 60 days. What would this look like here? Oops, 34. Why am I struggling here? $365. I'm struggling with this. Okay, roughly 63 days, you can see based on the trading volume, based on everything that I've put here, you can expect about 117%. Again, this is back testing. This is looking at previous data. So this is not going to be super accurate moving forward. It's just an estimate. Just hopefully that makes sense. Now, what's great about DeFi Buddy is I can take all of this and I can actually go create the liquidity pool on Uniswap. And so what that brings up is my exact pool, my ETH USDC 0.05% fee tier on Arbitrum. Now, what I can do is click Add Liquidity, and this brings me to the place where I can provide liquidity. So again, ETH USDC 0.05% fee tier. I press Continue. And then when I want to select custom range, this allows me to set that range that I selected. So my bottom range here was going to be 3950. The top of my range was 4775. And what that will do, what that will do is it will show me, hey, what ratio of assets will I need to provide as liquidity here? And so I have $2,600 of USDC and only 0.08 of ETH. So if I were to click, let's go 2,000 here. That's actually not. I want to provide about $2,500. So this is where Uniswap has limited functionality in terms of. All right, so when I'm here, Uniswap's a little funky here. So I'm going to have to swap some USDC for ETH to make sure I get that proper ratio. And so what I want to do is I want to provide about $2,500 into this pool. And so I'm going to have to do a few fidgetings here to figure out how much USDC will I need to swap into ETH. So let's do that here. And I'm not going to pause and do this. I actually want to show you that process. So because it's a little time consuming here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do about $1,500. I'm going to type about 1,500, and that will show me, hopefully, how much. Why is it not popping up here? There it is. That is what, 2,300. So I'm pretty close. Let's go up to 6. Let's go like this. Get my calculator out really quick so I can do this faster. 1,650. Plus 880 is about $2,500. So that's perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I need to swap for 0.197. Now I already have 0.080. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 0.1971 minus, and I want to make sure that I keep at least 0.02 ETH in this wallet. So I'm going to subtract 0.62. And that means I need to swap for, oops, I messed that up. Let me try it again. 0.1971 minus 0.0. Oh yeah, no, 62 equals. There we go. So now what I need to swap for is 0.1351. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up Uniswap. And I'm going to swap some USDC for ETH. So I'm going to come here into the trade function, and I'm going to make sure that I select USDC. So on the Arbitrum chain, so let's select Arbitrum. I have USDC, and I'm going to flip this. I want to swap USDC for ETH. And remember, I want to swap for 0.1351 ETH. So I'm going to swap 605 USDC for 0.1351 because I need more ETH in my wallet. So I'm going to do that here. And actually, real quick, you can see this fee, 0.25%. That $1.51 I'm paying in fees is actually going to liquidity providers. So that's pretty cool. Okay, I'm going to swap. Confirm swap. Now, if I were to go back to Uniswap here, you can see my ETH has updated. So now I have about 2,000 ETH and I have 0.21599 ETH in my wallet here. So if I'm wanting to provide liquidity at this range that I've set, and I have 1650 in USDC, and I have 925 plus 1650, that's $2,575 I'm putting in this liquidity pool. Now you can see as the current price is moving, the ratio of my assets is shifting, so that's okay. I'm going to press review, and I'm just going to review everything. ETH USDC 0.05% fee tier, minimum range, maximum range. I'm depositing this amount of ETH, this amount of USDC. I'm paying 1 cent for the network fee. I'm going to press create. Press confirm. I'm depositing both ETH and USDC into this liquidity pool. And now it's creating my position. And there we go. Now I have a wrapped ETH USDC liquidity pool, $2,557 worth in this position. You can see this is the APR that's going to, that it's not a fixed rate. It's going to be varying based on, based on the trading volume. And then this is the fees that are collected. The next thing I can do is actually come back to DeFi Buddy, and I can come into the portfolio section. This portfolio section allows me to track my liquidity pool range. So I've already connected my wallet, so I'm just going to click refresh. We'll let this load for a sec, and then I want to migrate over to the liquidity providing section to see if my pool has come up yet. We'll let that run for a sec. And there we go, it is loaded. Now I can see my liquidity positions right here. If I scroll down and I click liquidity positions, I can now see my ETH USDC liquidity pool tracked here on DeFi Buddy. And what I love about this is that it kind of projects out for me, hey, what's my estimated cash flow for this position? What APR is actually being realized as cash flow comes in? And then this shows me my uncollected fees. So this is a great way to come in and kind of see, hey, what's my performance stats? Am I in range? You can see my positions active. What's the ratio of assets that are in my pool right now? How much uncollected fees have I earned, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pause this video, let my pool work for a little bit, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you, hey, look, I've earned some capital, and we'll kind of look at the time. So 9:48 a.m. here on Wednesday, October 8th. I'm going to pause this, come back in about just a few minutes, and we're going to see some cents piling into my position here. And just like that, literally less than 1 minute, you can see right here my uncollected fees. I now have 2 cents worth of uncollected fees. So within just a minute, my liquidity, my USDC and my ETH have been provided into that liquidity pool. People are swapping back and forth, and those fees that they're paying are coming to me. You can see just in the last 2 minutes, my estimated APR has been about 123%. And I've earned 2 cents in collected fees. So that's it. Hopefully that makes sense. That is kind of it was kind of a longer video, but step by step on how to get fully set up using the terminology, using the tools at our disposal to set our liquidity pool ranges, find liquidity pools, provide that as liquidity, and start seeing that cash flow start to roll in. So hopefully this provided you some value. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and ask those questions. And hopefully this gave you a step-by-step guide on how to do it. And we'll talk soon. Peace.